Hello everybody. Good Lord, is that the time? 5 past August already. Well, we open the season with a visit from the reigning champions in the form of Manchester City. Kick-off on Sunday is 4:30 p.m. Get used to the Sundays, guys. By my reckoning, should we progress past the Thursday night conference playoff round, we won't see a Saturday kick-off until November at the earliest. And even that would depend on TV. Meanwhile, the Elizabeth line, the construction of which started 50 years before the invention of the railway itself, is now fully open. The bad news is that the middle bit is closed on Sundays, which adds it to the C2C lines through Grays to the list of travel routes you won't be able to use this weekend. So, the Cit-i-zens then, and please note the correct spelling of the nickname that they've had since some time before the Battle of Hastings, rather than the ghastly so-called official version spelt with the letter Y, included presumably for copyright and marketing reasons. As one might expect from a club that's owned by a country, no matter how much they try to suggest otherwise, the money has been forthcoming as they endeavour to go for a third consecutive title. And with oil prices currently reaching something like £100,000 per thimbleful of castrol, it's even more like small change to them. Hilariously, Pep Guardiola was recently quoted as saying that the fact that they sold a few players this summer was indication of the fact that their business model was sustainable. Yes, I'm sure my life would be a little bit more sustainable if somebody primed the pumps with a couple of billion quid to start with. All of this means that after a winter window spent pretty much with her feet up, having grapes fed to her one by one, Daisy, my beautiful personal assistant, is now actually going to have to do some work. Her first point of interest was the £52 million spent on Erling Haaland. The Norwegian striker was the first arrival of the new season, coming as he did from Borussia Dortmund. Haaland is the son of former Forest and Leeds defender Alf Inge, or Alfie Haaland, a player possibly best known for his run-ins over the years with Roy Keane. Haaland Jr. was actually born in Leeds, a handicap he seems to have overcome with little difficulty. His goal-scoring record in the Bundesliga is fairly astounding, 62 goals in 67 league appearances. At international level, it's a similar story where he's netted 20 and 21 for Norway. There again, he hasn't come up against Craig Dawson yet. His bio seems to suggest that he's big on meditation, a lot of which appears to involve staring into distance whilst having absolutely no knowledge of what the hell's going on around you. Much like a Premier League referee then. The next arrival bolstered the ranks of the custodians in the form of Stefan Ortega, who arrived from German outfit Arminia Bielefeld on a free. Ortega, who owes his decidedly unteutonic surname to his Spanish dad, made over 180 league appearances for Die Armenien over 2 spells, the majority occurring on his return from a 3-year sojourn with our old friends 1860 München. You sure that's right, Daisy? His career seems to have consisted of quite a lot of nearlies, I think you might put it. As a youngster, he was called up to the German under-19 squad, only to remain an unused substitute for the tournament. For Euro 2020, he was on the standby list for the squad should any member of that 1930s music hall trio, Neuer, Leno and Trapp, have pulled up lame, which of course they didn't. As if to underline the almost situation, the German magazine Kicker, which is German for kicker, voted Ortega as the Bundesliga's second best goalkeeper in 2020. At some point over the summer we were being linked with Calvin Phillips. However, the £42 million earned by all those pennies spent by people trying to spend a round sum at the petrol pumps last Tuesday was enough to seal the player's transfer from Leeds to Manchester City. Add-ons could push that up to £45 million, which will be covered by 3 minutes of petrol expenditure at Clackett Lane services on the M25. Phillips' stock in trade has improved over the years, particularly since people realised that he's played well alongside Rice in the England setup, finally and hopefully permanently reducing Henderson to the support act role that's, well, still too much for him really. At the time of writing, those are the only 3 first 11 squad players to have arrived on the manor, though who knows what will happen between the time this gets sent off to the boss and kick off on Sunday. Haaland and his dodgy hair were on duty in the weekend's 3-1 Charity Shield. Let's have any of this community nonsense. Defeat to Liverpool, whose supporters once again booed the national anthem before wandering off wondering why they're probably the most detested supporters in the country. City's goal scorer was Alvarez, who technically wasn't a new signing as such, having technically arrived in January, though he actually stayed with River Plate until the end of the season, scoring 6 times in a Copa Libertadores match at the end of May before crossing the Atlantic. Well, it's time now to take our first look at the season at the wild and wacky world of association football. And we really should start with a tip of the hat to the Distaff side for their splendid victory in the Euros. As I watched the capacity crowd at Wembley in common with some 17 million others watching on the box, I was reminded of a radio interview I did a few years back for the BBC. This involved me sitting in the commentary positions at the Olympic Stadium, where, for some unknown reason, my views were being sought on the stadium. The interview went out live, which meant from time to time the lead presenter, a fine gentleman called Jonathan Overend, would pause the discussion to go to other sports and grounds for score updates. As the score from Chelsea versus Manchester City in the WSL came in, that day's match commentator, who I had the misfortune to be sat next to, nudged me and said, "Women's football, nobody cares, do they?" Or words to that effect. Thankfully, the commentator, who was not much loved anywhere outside his outside clothing, is no longer employed by the BBC. I do wonder if he was watching on Sunday, though. At this time of season, most news centres around the incredibly boring world of the transfer window, as so-called in-the-knows up and down the country claim to have spotted Lionel Messi filling up at Clackett Lane services on the M25 en route from Gatwick to Gillingham. You know the sort of thing. So I'm indebted to the light relief provided by the Swiss courts for their comedy decision that Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini are gentlemen of the highest order, and that an unauthorised payment of £1.35 million received by Platini was simply pay that he was due, despite the lack of any evidence to back up that assertion. Good old FIFA, eh? Well, let's move on to us. Well, at the moment, at time of writing and all that sort of caveat, we've got 4 new first 11 signings on board, technically speaking. However, I'm not going to count Areola, because he was here already. So we say bienvenue to Naïf Aguirre, a £30 million arrival from Rennes. And we also say au revoir to Naïf Aguirre, the player having succumbed to the curse of Webster and Hall by getting injured in a friendly up at Rangers. He's had surgery and we're looking at somewhere near November before him. Maybe he'll finally make his debut in our first Saturday game. Our next arrival was Flynn Downs, who came in from Swansea for an undisclosed fee, which Daisy says was something like £12 million. Downs, a hammer, arrived after 1 season in South Wales, having arrived from Ipswich Town, with whom he spent the previous 4 years, though that did include a spell on loan with Luton. Downs is a former pupil of Brentwood School, whose alumni include the late great Douglas Adams, good, and somebody called Frank Lampard Jr., who's apparently going to be managing for Everton for the next few months. Bad. I will be very, very, very disappointed in the modern footballer if Downs isn't nicknamed Errol by his teammates. Now sit down. I have some important information to impart. We signed a striker. Yep, that's right, a forward. A player who plays up front for a living. This astounding tactical concept occurs with the arrival of Gianluca Scamacca from Sassuolo, the Italian football club named after a Phil Collins single. Daisy says the fee was somewhere in the region of £30.5 million, excluding add-ons. Scamacca has played much of his career distancing himself from the actions of his dad, who does amusing little things like smashing up cars parked at the Roma training ground. As you do. Scamacca, the player, went to great pains to point out that he shared only a surname with Pop, who seems to have been off the plot for many a year. Put it this way, if Scamacca Sr. asks for any complimentary tickets from his son, he'll probably find his mobile switched off. On the pitch, Scamacca has been capped on 7 occasions by the Italian team, who cleverly avoided potential sunstroke by failing to qualify for the World Cup. So he'll be able to give it a good go for the first few months, safe in the knowledge that he'll have a nice break in December. Now, we have been linked and we are apparently close to signing a number of others, but there's little point in my commenting until stuff materialises. I'll leave that to all the in the knows. There are areas where we obviously need strengthening, and many of those linked with us will strengthen those areas. Let's wait and see. Injuries, well, apart from Aguirre, who I mentioned a few moments ago, there is a little bit of a doubt about Diop, who's recovering from an unspecified knock, but he's expected to form part of the squad for Sunday. Which brings me neatly on to the prediction. Over the last 12 months, we've improved to the level where Manchester City no longer turn up and look at the fixture as an easy 3 points. In fact, last season we drew 2 and just lost the 1 against them, and one of those draws was a win on penalties. So much will depend on whether we can maintain this upward trend. We can go into this match with the same attitude as we did in the corresponding fixture just a few weeks ago. I see us getting something out of it. I'll be a bit cautious and suggest a draw, so the traditional £2.50 that would have been spent on a contribution to Platini's leaving present will instead be transferred to the accounts of Winston's digital turf accountants and placed on a 2-2 draw. Enjoy the game.
So we're here in the offices of a Late Late Show with the host of a Late Late Show, James Corden.
Hi.
Big West Ham fan.
Yes. And big knees up Mother Brown, man.
Yeah.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.